Imagine a PCB, a printed circuit board. It probably looks something like this, or this, or this. Thin, straight traces connected by some multiple of 45 degrees. Why do they all look like this? Well, we can thank the first PCB CAD software from the 70s and 80s. This was when we really started to use computers to design our PCBs, but those computers had a hard time with curves, so they only let you route traces in some multiple of 45 degrees. This kind of became the de facto, and we still build PCBs like that today, for no good reason other than it works and we're used to it. But it doesn't have to be this way. Early PCBs were drawn by hand, which led to some beautiful organic curves and complex shapes you just don't see on modern PCBs. But I'm going to change that. Today I'm going to try and draw a PCB myself. But instead of designing the system in a computer and somehow printing it onto the circuit board, I'm going to actually just draw on the circuit board. My art is going to be the etch resist. I think this will work, but let's give it a try. Here we have our starting point, a single-sided blank PCB. So first what I'm going to do is section this up because I don't actually need the whole board, and then I will clean it very thoroughly and start drawing my pattern onto it. So I sectioned up my PCB, cleaned everything really well with a Brillo pad, sat down in front of my desk and came up with a design. This would be using a paint marker for no other reason than it looked like it would be a good resist. This proved a little bit tricky to use, but my PCB design is pretty simple and I have enough material that if I mess this up, I can always build another one. After I made one PCB design, I actually made a second one as well. This one I drew with a kind of like a paintbrush style trace or paintbrush style pen, and then this one was with a traditional kind of felt tip pen. This is much finer traces and details. This one's a little bit more flowy and organic, but I'm not sure if I like this one as much. We'll see how they come out of the etch and then go from there. Alright, so out on the balcony, I've got my chemicals here, which are hydrogen peroxide and white vinegar. Just regular salt here. So first thing, I'm going to mix my chemicals, make sure they're nice and warm, and get etching. You can see almost immediately it's like becoming yellow. And I believe that's the salt, or the copper salts forming on the surface, which will be taking away our copper. So that did not work. This is my first attempt. There's nothing on it. The resist came off within 5 minutes of being in the bath, and I thought this was because I was using a brush to help clean off the oxide layer, so I tried again. Here's my second attempt. It also didn't work, but you can actually see where the traces were supposed to be. But it looks as though it's etched the opposite, like it looks more etched where I put the resist on. So, also a failure. Back to the drawing board here. What I think is happening is the hydrogen peroxide is actually attacking the paint marker I put on there, which is etching that away first. I think. I'm not a chemist. There's a reason I'm not a chemist YouTuber. My workaround for that is actually just to go out and buy this here, which is ferric chloride, which is the normal kind of etching chemical for making PCBs at home. The reason I didn't really want to do this off the bat is because it's a little bit worse to work with than my homemade hydrogen peroxide solution, but it actually does work, so that's a plus. I made up a couple test pieces, just small pieces of PCB, and did some designs on those and then tried to etch them. So here we've got the ferric chloride. It's super dark color, like it's kind of like a mixture of cough syrup and Coca-Cola. Should probably have gloves on actually. So this is my first test piece right here. I used 3 different markers to see which one would resist the chemicals better. This one didn't resist at all. This one's not too bad, but this one actually looks pretty good, although not perfect. And this looks okay, but I don't think it's good enough for a PCB, so I've got something else going on here. And I think my problem might be my surface prep. The PCB material comes with a little bit of corrosion on the surface, and I think I really have to get that all off and really clean the surface with IPA or something like that to make sure that my resist layer adheres really well to that, so it doesn't come off in the chemical bath. So let's try that and run this test again. I'm actually just thinking, and I think I might try different markers as well. Originally I had paint markers because I thought that would be a really good way of protecting the PCB, but I see online some people are using stuff that's more like just a regular like permanent marker. So I'm going to go to the office supply store again and buy some just a whole arrangement of permanent markers and see what works best. So with some new markers, new surface prep, and some better temperature control for my etchings, I think the best way to do science is to change the most amount of variables at once. I ended up with my first success. This is an actual PCB trace on here. And the best marker actually was the most expensive one as well. Also the coolest looking. I wonder if there's some sort of coincidence there. So now that I had a technique that works, we're gonna actually try and make my circuit board for the third time. But this time around, I went out and bought a whole bunch more PCB material. So if I mess these up again, I'll have a couple chances to fix those problems. So here is version 3 of my board. Let's go try and etch this, see what happens. So that worked, but it kind of sucked as well. It looks like it's been drawn by a 5-year-old. My traces were way too thick, and I made a couple graphical errors with it. I think the layout would work, but I'm not going to use this one. I'm going to build another one. But this time I'm going to take, again, a little bit of a different tact. I'm going to get a thinner marker, as long as I can find the same brand. I'm pretty sure it'll work. And I'm going to be a little bit more deliberate with my layout, so I'll plan it a bit more ahead of time. At this point, I was relatively confident with my design. I went ahead and cleaned the PCB extremely thoroughly, and then started to draw the design. I would base this more on some of the early cards, something from like a Bendix computer or something like that, more than the super organic forms you sometimes see. I also bent the pins of my IC flat, so it would become a sort of pseudo surface mount part. This meant I wouldn't have to drill all the through holes, and then I could also solder them onto the face of the PCB instead of having the legs go through and be soldered from the backside. This wouldn't really be better for any reason other than aesthetics, but that's kind of an important part of this project. This is almost certainly not the best way to make anything. I was really happy with how this turned out. I was hoping the etching would go well because I really wanted to use this in my project. Back into the acid bath, again, this time 5th time, something like that. And the PCB looked amazing. Once it was cleaned off, the copper was shiny, crisp, and ready to solder. So I started the construction process. I had used mostly surface mount, or kind of this type of surface mount. Did they ever use this in real parts? I feel like I might have seen it in some old electronics. Some of my parts, like this decoupling capacitor, were proper surface mount parts, as well as my indicator LED, which was tiny. I had these left over from a previous project, so I thought I might as well use them. But wow, soldering on these little bits is really tough. This is like the size. I think this is smaller than a grain of rice. And pretty much as soon as I soldered it on, the surface tension of the solder just sucked it away, and I had to go start over again. But after a bit of finicking and a bit of reflowing my solder, I was really happy with how I was able to get everything to stick onto this board. I used another surface mount technique to mount these resistors on here, and then once I had those done, I drilled holes for my non-surface mount, the actual through-hole parts, which were mostly the plugs and a potentiometer that will go on the top. one thing that was common on these old hand-drawn circuit boards was fully tinned traces. Now, I believe the reason they did this was a form of corrosion resistance, but whatever the cause, I loved how it looks, and I tinned all of the active traces on my board. Now, you might be looking at this and wondering, what is it? Well, good question. I needed a simple project to use this circuit building technique, and I also needed a soldering fan, a new soldering fan for my workshop. So I built this. The case is 3D printed, which was not my first choice usually, but I thought it would contrast really nicely with the handmade PCB. Somewhat surprisingly, everything actually fit together perfectly the first try, which is somewhat unusual for my 3D modeling. That's hardly my best skill set, one could say. Another thing on this project that I was really happy about was my brass and wood filter holder. This just holds a carbon charcoal filter in front of the fan to help clean out the air, but it has a really cool, in my opinion, woven brass look to it. So does this work? Well, yeah, once you plug it into a 12-volt power supply, switch it on, you can adjust the speed of the fan and it'll suck away your solder smoke, no problem. And the filter even works surprisingly well. So now that this worked out and I have a functioning fan and a really cool looking PCB, I'm happy with this project. However, I think for a while I'm going to go back to purely electronic projects and not some sort of weird electrochemistry projects. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Take care.